Okay, and welcome to another Somerset Player podcast. And today we're being joined by Peter Robinson, who probably has spent more years being involved with the club than anybody in recent years. Robbo, welcome. Nice to see you here.
Yeah, 43 years, one way or another.
43 years, man and boy.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
You've seen a few changes in those days, I'm
Well,
guessing.
it is the ground for a start, you know. It's, they don't know they're born now.
Absolutely, they certainly don't.
What we call hard living in our day.
Too right. But you obviously have got quite a background in cricket, haven't you? So just tell us how you sort of came to get involved in cricket in the first place.
Well, my uncle played for Worcestershire for 20 years or more. Rowley Jenkins, leg spinner, played a bit for England, toured South Africa in 1948-49. And I suppose about 5, I remembered all the excitement in the family. But, you know, he's quite a character, my uncle. You know, he got some lovely stories, really. But somebody from his background probably wouldn't play today. He was the youngest of 10 children.
Really?
Yeah, and when he toured South Africa in 1948, the alderman on the council at Worcester raised £100 to help pay for him to go.
Really?
And they sent food parcels back then as well.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Incredible to think how things have moved on since those days.
That's it. Well, I mean, that was the era of course, amateurs. All the clubs were amateurs. Counties had an amateur captain.
Yeah.
And I can remember not long before he died having a conversation. He got, I think about 1949, he got 180 odd wickets.
Yeah.
And I said, how many did you get with the Google, Uncle Roll? He said about 13, and they were all jazz hats.
Oh, great stuff.
Yeah.
And obviously, you left school at 15, I think, didn't you?
Left Christopher Whitehead, yeah. And I was going to start at a place called Altex, a little engineering firm in the office.
Yeah.
And they don't know how lucky they were, because I'd been down for nets at Worcester over the years, you know, from a young one. Martin Horton used to run nets in the Easters and that. And Charles Hallows was the coach, and he said to my uncle, would I be interested in joining the ground staff, working with the groundsman and playing? They had the club and ground side in those days. And, well, it was no contest, was it? I didn't say how much or anything like that. And so I rang on the Saturday and on the Friday, and I started on the Saturday, £2 a week. Altex were very lucky.
Yeah. So that was when you were 15?
Yeah, 15, yeah. And then I'd played for K's on what was called the Cinderella ground. It was where Worcester played in the very early days.
Okay.
And I played club cricket for them, you know. But then when I joined Worcester, you got farmed out into the Birmingham League, and I played for Kidderminster. I remember one second team game. I played for Kidderminster seconds to start, 15. Played against Charlie Barnett.
Really?
Yeah.
Charlie Barnett.
I see this old chap come in with little metal glasses and the old gloves there.
Wrap-round gloves.
I bowled about the first 3 balls. He hit me for 3 fours.
Charlie Barnett, the Worcester.
Gloucester player. Yeah.
K's were the catalogue people?
Yes, that's right. But that's the worst job I've ever had. I've had a few in the winters. I helped the groundsman until November, and then they sent me to K's and working sending bills out. You owe 6pence.
The nice little pitch and ground at Kidderminster, wasn't it, in those days?
Yes.
Is it still the same?
Yeah, as far as Chester Road, yeah.
A nice little pavilion.
Yeah. Well, of course, like all counties, Worcester played around a little bit more, like Somerset did, you know, but it's all got pretty central now. I mean, when they had the floods, Worcester used Kidderminster.
Yeah. I suppose they still would do now.
Well, yes. But, you know, we all went out to the Birmingham League, and it was some of the best education I had in cricket. You know, people like Eric Hollis, and my uncle had... When he retired, he played for West Bromwich Dartmouth for years. And it was some of the best education I had, playing against people like Dennis Amos, John Jameson, playing for Smethwick.
Absolutely.
And then Imran Khan played. I moved to Stourbridge.
Yeah.
And when you got to 21, you had to be their pro.
Right.
and I think I got a pound. but they had there's about 30 people from Stourbridge have played for Worcestershire over. Yeah,
So
my uncle played for them.
Strong old side with Stourbridge.
Yeah, yes. It's all the Birmingham leagues changed now to what it was, but there are people from Northants played for. Yeah, as I say, but a lot of the Warwickshire lads got farmed out.
Yeah.
We got farmed out to Kidderminster, Stourbridge, and Dudley.
Right.
You know, and but I mean, all the Tom Graveney played in it, Graham Hick played in it, Basil D'Oliveira played in it. They all played
Very
in the
good
Birmingham
standard.
League. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And what about obviously your progression through at Worcester? Did you tell me you young player of the year for the second 11?
I had a lot. Somerset were one of the sides I always seemed to do well against. But,
Right.
But the thing was, we had so much competition. There was actually 4 of us. There was Dougie Slade, Norman Gifford, and a lad named David Pratt bowled left arm, Martin Horton.
Yeah.
So it was difficult to get into the, break in. And I did 2 or 3 years in that. And once to every man and nation comes the moment to decide, And I made my first class debut. I played against the Pakistan Eaglets was the first one.
Yeah.
And then I made my championship debut against Hampshire in 1963.
Right.
At Bournemouth.
Yes.
LBW Wassell, never out. Jim Parks' father gave me out. but the 3 of us played there, Norman, Dougie and myself.
3 left-arm spinners.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing, isn't it?
But I mean, they were a very good side at that period, and they said, oh, you'll play next year. That was 1964. Well, I didn't play a game and they won the championship. Probably a message there.
Yeah, yeah.
But
didn't you play a game against Cambridge University and one R.C. Kerslake got you out?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Mike Braley was playing in that, and a fellow named Eddie Craig who played. Yeah, that was a place called Hales Owen.
Right.
There.
And the universities had strong sides in those days, didn't
Well,
they?
they did. Yeah, they're much different to what it is now. Really, I mean, some of them would do. They used to do land economy. I think spend about 4 years, I think, and then fail at the end. Yeah.
So at the end, when the time had come for you to make that decision, how did that all come about then? Tell me a little bit about it.
Well, I didn't, and I'd done well in the second team for quite a number of years, and I thought, well, I want to play first class cricket, and I still had a year to run on my contract, and I asked if I could leave, put myself on the market really, and you had to they agreed, and you had to be on a special registration.
Right.
Where clubs had to offer you either 3 years or 5 years.
Okay.
I think Jeff Lomax before me came on a 5-year, I think. Special.
Right.
Yeah. And then once I said I was going, I had quite a lot of counters interested. I don't mean to say that as a...
No.
But
yeah.
I chatted with Warwickshire, MJK Smith,
Yeah.
which you'd have thought was the obvious choice, just up the road. I went to meet Gloucester at Cheltenham, and Somerset really, and there was just something about it. I don't know. I knew a lot of the lads because I'd played against them a lot, and because I think I first played here 1960 in the second. Maurice Tremlett was played in the second that day, and we stayed at the County Hotel.
There's posh.
Yeah, my first time I stayed in a hotel like that, the County Hotel, and we always used to eat in the restaurant in the evening.
Yeah.
So I thought, this is nice, all posh. I went in there, and a lovely meal. Got back to Worcester a week later. Joe Lister called me. Joe wants to see you in the office. He said, I'll tell you this, young man, we have the set dinner menu, not the a la carte. And the following week, I looked at my wage packet. There's little brown packets, money.
I remember those.
And I opened it up. It was twice as much. And I thought, cool. And he called me in a few days later. I believe I've made a faux pas. And I thought, what's he talking about? He'd give me somebody else's money.
Give me somebody else's money.
But then Charles Hallows was the coach at Worcester. And when I said I was leaving, he said, go and play a game at Lancashire. Once you've seen it up there, you know, you'll like it. Well, they seemed to book me into something almost like a blooming doss house, awful place. And I think Jack Bond was playing then. He was on his way out, Jack Bond, but of course he finished up the hero, didn't he, in the 70s?
Indeed, yeah.
And I played in this, and I had a poor start. They put me at short leg. I got it on the head off Ken Shuttleworth. I think I got naught with the bat. I thought, but when I bowled, I got 5 in one innings and 7 in the other.
Really?
And Cyril Washbrook was the big noise up there then. But there was something about the place that didn't seem right, you know. And he called me and I went to go with him. And I just in me, go and put a jacket on. He said, you're coming in the committee room. So I said, and it didn't feel right, you know. He said, well, we'd like you to sign for us. I said, well, I'll think it overnight. And he rang me on the Saturday and I said, I'm coming to Somerset. And he wasn't very happy.
Wasn't very happy.
No. But that year, 64, Jeff Clayton, who I shared a room with here, he blocked up in front of a full house at Lancashire because Mike Smith put all the fielders on the boundary.
Yeah.
And somebody ran on to grab his bat, I think, and as he walked up the stairs, they sacked him. And they sacked Ken Greaves, Peter Marner, you know, they all got the sack.
They went somewhere else.
Yeah, but it had that feel there, something that didn't feel right, you know.
No. And so how did you actually come to sign on the line down here?
Well, I met Richard Robinson and the pack horse on the cross. I mean, the only agents then were news agents and estate agents. You didn't have an agent. So they got me cheap, really. Steak and chips.
Steak and chips.
And I was on 400 at Worcester. And I had a 3-year contract, 525, 550, 575.
Right.
But you got more money when you were capped. Well, I got my cap in 66, but I never got any more money.
Never got any more money, did you?
No. But the worst thing was, not the worst, I kept ringing up, I kept saying, where will I stay? Can you find me some digs? Oh, it's all in hand. He said, it's all in hand. So the 31st of March, before I rang, he said, oh, you're in the Crown and Sceptre. I thought, oh, right. So I tootled on down in my Ford Anglia, booked into the Crown and said, oh, this isn't too bad. Anyway, after 2 days, Richard Robinson wants to see you in the office. I went in there. First thing he said, we can't afford to keep you there. He said, you better find somewhere. So I went back in the dressing room and I said, anybody got any ideas? They said, well, there's a spare bed in Clayton's room up the Princess Royal, you know. Fred and Merver in one room and there's a spare bed in there. And so I said, well, okay, yeah. So we paid 10 bob a night when we were there.
Right.
You know, Clayton was the scruffiest man on the planet. He said, this shirt's tight, isn't it? I said, well, yeah, it's mine, that's why. I was out of pocket by about £200 the first year I was here. The time I'd gone to Brooks, the laundry people, having a pint every night in the Crown, in the Princess Royal.
Yeah.
And we used to be the 4 of us would be there. We'll go out for a proper meal tonight. Okay, where are we going? We've always finished up at Howard's down the road.
Yeah.
But we played. Des and Mary Kelly ran the Princess Royal.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where we went for a pint after the game because the bar here was run by Dave Pipe. You see, it was closed after half an hour.
Yeah.
And when sides used to mix a bit, you'd go up there. You know, they'd all come up and we'd have an hour and a natter and yeah.
And Fred had come before you from Worcester, hadn't
Fred
he?
left. Yeah, Fred came 63. 63. I was 65. But Fred, well, good bowler, did well. I mean, he was a bit. I don't think he got on with Don too well at Worcester, but he never had anywhere to stay half the time, Fred, you know, but he could bowl, Fred. And he played at Kidderminster, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously, then you came here, started in 65. Do you remember your first game? Who was that against?
Lancashire here, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't get many, I don't think, yeah. Yeah, 1965. Of course, we had two spinners then, you know, Brian and myself,
Yeah.
you know, and they didn't always play both. But 66, we were about second or third, about third, you know, a good side, you know.
You had a good season with the ball in 66, didn't you?
Yeah, yeah. I got, I think, 7 for 10 on a flat one. Everybody said it was Trent Bridge.
Trent Bridge.
Bill got a big 100. Yeah.
Still 7 for 10 though.
Yeah, yeah.
And somebody got 5 wickets in the second innings, didn't they? I'm trying to
Well,
think. Was it Ken?
I bowled away at the second innings, I think.
Was it Ken in the first?
Yeah.
I think.
Trent Bridge for Ken and I have a lot of history there because Ken got 9 for there.
Did it? Yeah. Yeah.
And that was that's a lovely story. It was before I came, and Roy Verge and Ken always travelled together. So they went up there and absolutely monsooning. They thought, oh, well, let's go and have a look at the ground. And it was like a lake.
Yeah.
Like a lake. Oh, we won't play tomorrow. So Ken had a few Guinness. Got there, opened the bowling ball, absolutely hopeless. And Harold said to him, take your sweater, lad. And brought him back a bit later on, and he got 9. And Bomber Wells was number 11, and you know, basically what we'd say a walking wicket, but he couldn't. And Fred kept bowling wide, and I think Harold got fed up with it in the end, and Bomber managed to reach one and got caught by Harold, and that was Harold's 1000th victim.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's coincidence,
yeah, but
isn't it?
So Old Trafford and Trent Bridge has fond memories for us, really.
I bet, yeah.
Which we used to natter in the polytunnel, obviously.
Tell me, then, of course, 67, we had our trip to Lords, didn't we?
Amazing day,
I mean,
yes.
Go on, talk us about that, Robert.
Well,
that's a special day.
I didn't play in the other rounds, nor Brian Langford didn't play in the final. And we played up at Lancashire, and we didn't complete it the first day. And I can always remember another former player, John McMahon.
Yeah.
Well, he was
Australian.
a fiery character, John McMahon. And Langy was there. He said, well, I know this club we can go to. And Colin Atkinson had put a curfew on, and well, Langy and I thought, well, we're not playing. We'll go. So we went to this, and we're in this club with John McMahon. And then the chap come up on the Master of Ceremonies. He said, oh, we have one of the old Lancashire League players, famous cricketer, and with us tonight, Mr. Bill Alley. Bill was there. We never saw him. But John McMahon, I can always remember, he kept insisting that he'd left his coat in Lange's car. And he got quite aggressive, but he hadn't. Yeah, go on. But I say Ken bowled well there. We won the game in the final at Lords in September, which was a big game in those days. And but I'd been there to a final before the first one.
Okay.
1963.
63.
When I said I just got into the side at Worcester,
Yeah.
I was in the 12 for that match, but they left me out, and Dick Richardson played.
Against Sussex, wouldn't it have been?
Yes.
Sussex won it, didn't they?
Yeah.
They won the first year.
Awful drizzly day.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, you started early.
Yeah.
65 overs,
Yeah,
was it?
long game then. Yeah. But our final was an amazing day. The way people dressed up. We had all the Kent people with hops and everything else. I had people with barrels of cider and smocks and everything, you know. And I can always remember before the game started, they're chanting Bill's name, you know, Ali all round. But, we should have won it really. It was a different, the game was played differently then. But if you think of that Kent side, they had Dennis, Mike Dennis, Luckhurst, Knott, Cowdrey, John, the bowler. Derek Underwood. Brown.
Yeah, John.
Big
Dick Graham.
Norman Graham.
Big
yeah,
Norm.
Yeah. Yeah, and the West Indian bowler,
Yeah, John Shepherd.
John Shepherd, caught not bowl Shepherd.
That's right. Yeah, I
Driving
looked
us
it up last night.
driving us a wide one. But they got off to a flyer, and then Bill and Fred pulled it back. But my memory is catching Colin Cowdrey off Ken, clip off his legs up, and he just had a standing ovation.
All the way to the wicket.
Yeah, because they just kicked Closey out as captain.
Yeah.
So I think he got in an altercation with a member at Warwickshire.
Right.
And they clapped him all the way in, and he got off the mark, and then he clipped me low down at mid-wicket, and I threw it up, and I always remember the roar, wonderful. I can always remember playing in it might have been the NatWest or Gillette down here again, against Leicester.
Yeah.
And I opened with Merv, and that was in Illy's era, they had a good attack. Illingworth, Graham Mackenzie, Ken Higgs, Jack Birkinshaw, Terry Spencer, John Steele.
That's a good old side.
And Merv and I put on quite 60 or 70 for thought we'd done quite well. But you had lunch in those days, you see.
Yeah.
And Merv got out, and he came in closely. He said, "You letting these bloody spinners bowl at you?" He said. I said, "Well, I just sweep a bit, that, Anyway, I can see it now from that he brought Ken Higgs back. And Closey had the biggest wind-up of all time, and out went middle. And Jack Crapp, the old umpire there, Gloucester, "That's lunch, gentlemen." So we staggered back into the old pavilion. There's just a couple of Ethel's chicken legs on a plate, nobody else in there, just a couple of old. I think the chicken legs had walked there as well. But that game, I think we got about 200 and whatever, and we had them 58 for 6, or might have been more, and Chris Balderson was still in, and they batted quite a way down, and they tipping away, and closely. Jim Parks was keeping wicket.
Yeah.
He got one on the thumb. "Oh, I think I'll have to go off, Brian." Oh, Rosie used to keep a little bit.
Yeah.
So she said, "I'll do it. I've kept in a test match," he said. So off he did. He puts all the gear on,
Yeah.
And they're creeping away. And I can hear Merv Ness, "We'll lose this, Robbo." I said, "Can't lose this, Merv." And then Balderson had a sweep at Langy. And the old straggler's there.
Yeah.
AA runs round, drops it and volleys it into the Ridley stand. And they're still ticking away. Anyway, they got them about 8 down, and we think, well, get in for the kill here. So he brings AA Jones back. So he's sharp AA, quick, bumping. He said, "These gloves are too small." So he gave them to Jack Crapp. He's keeping with no gloves on, and we lost by 1 wicket, I think, something like that. Unbelievable. Never, you couldn't believe it. It was like knocking somebody down for 14 rounds and losing in the 15. Unbelievable.
Yeah, but he had a knack with him, didn't he?
Oh,
Closey?
he did. I can remember, when you see a new player come into a team, you think, well, what does he do? And there was a lad named Mike Ball we'd never come across. And we said, "Closey, what does he do?" He said, he does a bit of this and a bit of that. He said, "I can play him all right, you lot might struggle a bit." But the most amazing game, we used to play all over the place, as you know. We played at Torquay.
Yes.
On the rugby ground and everything else. Well, there used to be £50 for the fastest 50 on a Sunday. And Closey was still not out. You played Saturday and resumed the county game on the Monday.
On the Monday, yeah.
Anyway, so we go to Torquay, and his eyes up there, 50 quid for short boundary. And he got a little top edge off a lad named Michael Mackenzie Hooper aboard Little Phantoms, and hit him straight in the mouth. It's all over the place, the mouth. Well, where'd you find a dentist on a Sunday? So he's had quite enough whiskey by the time he gets to Countess Weir, and we thought, we won't see Closey in the morning. And earlier on in the day, Morris Hill had been complaining of toothache. And then the old door that sticks opened up, and then he walked out. He got a fag dangling on there, and he'd gone there in his sporting life, and and he went into bat. And he's not out at lunch, and he came in, and he said, I'll be glad when I get my 100. And he got 100.
Did he?
And then he went to see the dentist, I think it was Brendan Blood, and had it all sorted out. Yeah. But like, the difference between Closey and me, I had 2 nights in the Crown and Sceptre. He had 7 years.
He had 7 years. He was allowed to stay there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in those days, we used to have a drink in the Stragglers.
Yeah.
And he would hold court in the Stragglers, meander his way up to the Burney in the town, have his steak, and meander back to the Crown and Sceptre. Yeah. But I travelled with him a few times.
Right, yeah.
And I can always remember when he got the call up back for play for England in, what was he, 46? We were off to Portsmouth. And he said, first year I haven't put him in my diary, he said. And he made a comeback at
You did?
there. And I was quite friendly with Alan Elam at Kent. And he was 12th man in that game. And if anybody ever wants to watch a brutal cricket, watch John Edrich and Closey facing the West Indies
boys,
on a crack wicket at Old Trafford. And he was battered here, there and everywhere. And Alan Needham said to me, he was in the bath in the morning with his sporting life and he was spitting up blood.
I can believe that.
But he played another, Ken played in a test match, or 12th man.
Yeah.
When Colin Cowdrey broke his arm.
Yes, yeah.
And Closey got a good score. And he walked down the wicket to Wes Hall and Charlie Griffiths and they battered and bruised all over the place. And he got back and he said, well, if somebody else had played like me, we'd have won that. And Ken said, I was put in ice packs over here, lad, one here, lad. You know, he was black and blue. But he the beauty of it was he could give you a rocket in and it was never, that's where it finished.
Yeah.
But I always said his shins sound better than some bats. He used to feel from here to that chair, and they'd drill him into his shins, and he'd say, "Keep him up, lad. Keep him up." But I mean, that was the turning. You know, after say '69, and then the early '70s, we signed T.W. Cartwright, A.A. Jones, Derek Taylor. You know, and Closey, and Jim Parks had a season, two seasons, I think, Jim. Yeah. And that was the start of, and then the young lads, what we call it, like Peter Roebuck, Vic Boss, and all those started.
Because you sort of, your career sort of started to drop away, didn't it?
Yeah,
in the early middle 70s.
Did, yeah, about 63 around that, 73 time. But
and then you sort of. How did you come involved? Sort of you had the title of coach, didn't you, to the side?
Well, they offered me the position of coaching the seconds and helping Don Price, who was the groundsman then. Yeah. And then I used to do the seconds and do a bit of the pitches and things like that. Drive the old Land Rover. I can remember we used to take the circus on the road, you know. Yeah. We used to have a temporary stand, which we used to take. The ladies' loos was a bus.
Yes.
The Secretary's office was a caravan, and the printers. And I can always remember driving the Land Rover with the trailer, with the caravan on the back. And I do, you know, way into Worcester, you go down. We used to call it the cutting. You know? Yeah. And I drove around and I pulled into Clarence Park, and. A car followed me and he said, I think you've just left your windows in the cutting. They were all condemned, these old caravans. Yeah.
And didn't you tow a scoreboard?
Yes, yeah. That was a bit of a trip. Bath to Western, Blagdon and all around there. Yeah. Nobody ever trained you, just got in and drove it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, then obviously, as you say, your own career sort of drifted away, and 73, by then Closey had started to work his magic with these young players, hadn't he? Really?
Yeah, well, Bath, as I say, Vic, Peter Roebuck, you know, and Rosie had started, you know, Brian and Dasher played in 69. Yeah. And then they were at university, and they were starting to come back on a sort of a full-time basis. But Bill Andrews was the coach.
I was going to say, yeah.
When I first started.
Yes, yeah.
You know, and you know, I can always remember playing against Wiltshire here, and we got absolute pacing in the morning session. And we had a lad named John Martin,
Yes.
Oxford University. Yeah. And I say, we'd come in at lunch and we'd had a shocker. And Bill went round, he said, you know, you were there, and he got to John Martin. He said, you bowled like a proper idiot, John. He said, I haven't bowled yet, Bill. He said, don't you argue with me. He'd gone to the ring of bells. He missed most of it. Used to be able to go through the stragglers.
Yeah, out the back.
Yeah, but there were different. Coaching wasn't coaching at all, really. Bill, he said, somebody said he was the only man he knows who could sell a pair of wicket-keeping gloves to an off-spin bowler. he used to go around all the schools and have a boot full of kit, you know, selling kit, WHR. And he used to then do a bit of a press report to the local Worcester, you know.
Yeah.
And he'd be ringing it through. And I can remember there was a good bowler from Wiltshire called Jim Merriweather, a good bowler. And he's ringing, Jim Merriweather, spelt as it sounds. But he used to get a couple of bob for that.
Yeah, yeah, I can believe that.
Yeah.
Quite a character was old Bill, wasn't he?
Yeah. As I say, coaching wasn't really. He was always finding another Peter May or another Fred Truman, you know.
Yeah. And you stepped into his shoes then?
Pardon?
You sort of stepped into his shoes?
Well, yeah, I mean, Brian Rose took over as captain.
Yeah.
78, I think that
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
And first of all, Ken applied for the job. And he didn't fancy it. And then Brian asked me if I would do it, would be interested. I said,
Yeah.
well, yeah. And that's how it all started, really.
And you obviously saw the incoming of Boff and Viv and Joel as well.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they were huge players, weren't they?
Oh, yeah. It was such a together team, though, that, you know. I've often said to people, nobody ever talked about money. It was never even mentioned, you know, when you think of the money today. But it was such a Somerset. They were all, you know, that was it. And Dasher with his Wurzel tapes, and you know, but it was such a mixture. You got Peter Roebuck, Vic Marks, and you know the university boys, you know, and then you had Dredgy and the local lads as well, you know. I mean, Dredgy, he'd get off the pitch in the bath, gone. He was back to Frome.
Yeah.
Travelled every time. You know, the only time he lived in, he moved to Taunton his benefit year.
He did. Yeah.
And my daughters were frightened to death looking after his three boys. You know?
Lived up Chedden Road, didn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But it was very much a family feel to it all. You know then. But,
in 78, we went to Lords, didn't we? But we lost to Sussex.
Yeah, what turned that was a left-arm spinner. I can't think of his name now. Bowled at Viv, and it's something you didn't see much of then. He bowled over the wicket, then on the legs to Viv, and then Viv got out there. You know, but that's what changed it really.
I want to say Giles Cheetle.
That's it. Yeah.
It was him, was it?
Yeah,
That's an unusual.
And you didn't see much of that.
Yeah.
You remember the old Gloucester wicket bowler, Sam Cook?
Yeah.
If I'd have said, Sam, I'm going over the wicket, he'd have said, you've admitted defeat, lad.
Yeah.
Because Sam was a left armer, and it was thought like that. I mean, it only came in, I can remember seeing a lot of Richard Illingworth doing it a lot. But in my generation, you didn't. Very rarely, you did it to a left-hander over the wicket, but you didn't do it to the right-hander bowling into the rough. It was looked on as, oh, you don't do that.
Yeah.
But he did in that Gillette match, I remember that. Or Nat Western, was it?
Yeah. And that cost us that game. And then the following year we did the double, didn't we?
That's it, yeah. And 90, I think 1977 we were close. We went to Glamorgan.
Yeah.
And I think we dropped a catch that probably cost us it. But the interesting thing was Will Fuller was the secretary, and he didn't expect a load of Somerset people, and they all swarmed in.
Right.
And didn't pay, and he had to go around with the buckets to get it. It was a hell of a crowd. But Will Fuller, again, Evan Closey, we played at Swansea, and he complained that we batted too long, Fuller, and one thing and another. Anyway, we finished up winning by an innings. But there were characters, you know, it had everything really, and really probably should have won the championship. We're probably a game short of winning it, and I think we lost to Northants at Western by about 2 wickets, and if Joel had played, we'd have won that.
Right.
You know, but that was a side. But as I say, you prioritised it because you had a Benson Hedges or and a Sunday game, and we prioritised on that really.
I'm guessing we used to fill the houses here, didn't we, with one-day cricket?
Yeah. Oh yes. I mean.
So it's a good money spinner.
Yeah, and also we used to get a lot of Bristol City supporters following us, even going away, and we used to have to keep. Jim Pigeon, I think his name was, who worked in the office.
Right.
He used to go away to keep an eye on it on us in away games.
Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, that's lived on now, isn't it? I mean, you look at our one-day crowds here.
Yeah,
we get as good a crowds as anywhere.
Oh yeah, it is. It's always. I mean, and we've had good players all that era really. I mean, obviously Viv and everything. Then you got Marcus coming. So, it all. We've always had star attractions, really.
You've had a lot to do with those people, haven't you?
Oh, yeah. I coached with Tom, you see. When my coaching, I used to meet up. I used to drive to Tom at Wells, and we go on to Bath.
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time. I learned a lot with that. At TW, he was very good, and I learned a lot from him, really. Well, so did everybody.
He was involved very much with Botham's development, wasn't he, Tom?
Yeah. I mean, Both went obviously the Lord's ground star.
Yeah.
I can remember getting him back to play in a second team game at Coombe Dingle, which is the university ground.
Yeah, Bristol.
First ball caught mid on, bang. but it's amazing. I mean, the game for Both was. He loved the game, but it was like just playing a club game, really. I mean, he'd look and say, "Well, I think this bloke's a step and hit bowler." I think, and he would. But he's played some of the most amazing innings I've seen. In the early days, he took on Mike Proctor down here.
Yeah.
And smashed a big 100 and something, and then. He played an absolute magnificent against Malcolm Marshall down here. Unbelievable hitting. I mean, the bats they got now. I mean, Both always had a nice one from Duncan Fernley, but the bats they had now. I think I'd have reached the rope occasionally.
But I mean, those players in those days. I mean, you're talking about Viv and Joel. And Both particularly. They learnt their trade here, didn't they?
Oh, yes. Of course, Viv started at Lansdowne, Len Creed's team up there. But, Viv was... I can remember him getting 300 down here. My old mate Giffy, and Warwickshire it was.
Warwickshire.
And Paul Bale got it on the head about 12 o'clock. They had a good attack then, and you sort of, okay, I'm in, and I wander in, and he's not out. Quite a big score at tea. I said, Harold Gimlet's score, 309 or something like that, 10. Oh, is it, man? I mean, he got 322, Viv.
Yeah.
And he kept hitting my mate Giffy into here.
Did he?
Yeah. And I had a drink with Norman after the game. The pipe was going and the furnace was going. But the thing was, the Sunday League wicket turned square if he bowled us out. He said, "Why didn't we have that Saturday?" But he was I think the members at that time, I think they were hoping a wicket would fall, to get Viv in, and they would see wonderful cameos, Viv getting in, say, last hour of play or something like that, and he'd be 70 odd. He could have broke all records here, Viv. I think he used to get enough, That was it. But when we went to those finals, you could see how he must have been in Test cricket. Boof, the focus, different.
And you had the inside track on all of those. You were in the dressing room with everybody.
Yeah.
But what was it about that team that made it so good?
Well, I think the togetherness as much as anything. There was no egos, nothing like that. And as I say, they all got on well, and they were good cricketers too. And, I mean, one of the probably unsung ones was probably Vic, who always bowled his 4 over or a 10 over or whatever. Dangerous cricketer, Vic. Yeah. But we had all departments then, didn't we?
You had a good side.
Yeah, and they didn't wide people so much then. And Keith Jennings,
Keith.
He had to shove it down the backside, and Derek make it look a good ball, close to the stumps where they'd wide it today.
Yes, they would. Yeah.
And but Derek was a beautiful keeper.
Yeah.
There was the three, wasn't it? Not Taylor.
Yeah, exactly. All too right. Yeah.
Yeah, Derek.
Yeah, Derek was a good keeper. Yeah, and obviously then sort of we had that golden period where we sort of won all the trophies, and then we had the changeover, the business with Shepton Mallet and everything. And you were involved with the club through all those years, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, the hardest thing to do is to replace a team, and you're bringing in lads, where it was difficult. They're coming into a side. And they really wanted to prioritise one-day cricket still, but we hadn't quite got the guns really. The 85, 86 was an awful period. I'm not going to go into too much of that.
No.
But we had a lot of young players. Martin Crowe came in, and they were called the young naggers. And they used to go to the Nag's Head. Yeah. They used to have a night out there. So it was, but as I say, I think you see it in football, don't you? You find it hard to replace.
Yeah, exactly.
Success, and it was always going to be difficult. And as I say, it got a very nice, awful time to be around the place. I suppose one of my hardest things was asking Viv whether he wanted to play in a game afterwards, after things had happened. But I can remember the meeting in the Western Council offices. There. So Western, for me, will always be the sacking place. Yeah. That's where they used to meet when we played.
Well, of course, it's August, wasn't it?
Yeah,
end of the season.
First Monday in August, here they come, all 40 of them.
Yeah.
And then somebody not being retained, they'd all know in the local pub before he did. Yeah. Another world, really.
Yeah.
I always said, you're better having a good July and August than a May and June. They'll have forgot that.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, then that group came and went, but you were involved second 11 coaching in those days, weren't you?
Yeah. Well, Peter Anderson came, and then he brought in Dermot Reed.
Yeah.
And Dermot, I don't think particularly wanted me about the place, but it was. And I still say doing some coaching and one thing, but one of the Wells brothers came in, and the hardest thing was getting teams. You'd have to know your local, who to bring in and everything else. And I can remember he used to keep coming to me. He said, "Well, Oh, and somebody with a car, I said, well, any particular make? You know, and it was a different world. I can remember Dermot always wanted a box of new balls.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd been moved to health and safety.
Health and safety officer.
The only growth industry in the country at the time. and I used to get all these working time directives from the EU and everything. Anyway, I said, he keeps using, like I said, it's costing a fortune. He said, he's got an eye for detail. I said, oh. So I got the health and safety job. I had the fire people down and went all round. So I bought about 10 or 15 fire extinguishers. He said, what do you do? Eye for detail. But that was the worst period of my life, that. We had a game, India and Sri Lanka.
I remember that.
There. And I'd been called up the police station. How many bars will you have on? How many with this there? And everything, you know, on the day. Well, Paul Bulbeck, Matthew's father, used to run be the police we used. Yeah. They brought in somebody from Bristol, Superintendent Lewis, I think. Anyway, we were there, and I got all. He said, "I don't want your stewards running on the field." I said, "Running on the?" I said they couldn't get over the fence. I said they were running on the field, and I felt like Captain Mannering, who had them all lined up in the indoor school. Right, chaps, this is what we're doing today, you know. And we were up in the Ondarchie in one of the boxes, and all the people they were interested in were the tea and biscuits. And we had a chap working in the office there. He was an ex-Marine, Navy man.
Yeah. And
he got me some Marines down to outcome steward. And the press wrote, well, I think the tanks were in the car park. And anyway, we were there. That day I had my rights read to me by the fire officer. But first of all, we had some seats down there reserved for Sri Lankans.
Yeah.
And all these Indian people had sat in them. And I went to this guy. I said, "You've got him." He said, "Do you know who I am?" I said, "I do." I said, he was a Tendulkar lookalike, and he had his folder. I said, "Yeah, I can understand that." I said, "Now, India have won the toss and the batting. I think you ought to go in that stand and put your pads on." But that day, and then the Botham stand there, there's a fire door.
Yeah.
And they kept pushing it open, you see. So Peter Anderson got on the phone. "Could you get the police to send somebody round?" So I said to this guy, "It's your job to steward the game," he said. So I put a steward there. Then I get another call. "The fire officer wants to see you in the Botham stand." So I go round, and Nancy had left a bit of a bag of rubbish outside the door, and this fire officer, I think he went to Oman in the end. He kept coming all before the games and everything. And he said, "Right," he said, "I'm going to read you your rights because you're blocking a fire exit. So anything you say we were taken down and used in evidence." That was that game. And there was about 10,000 Indians and Sri Lankans in the game. And we got through the day in the end. And the next thing I see, he's got the mounted police here, the horses.
Right.
They're on the outfield.
Yeah, yeah.
So I went up to him in the end. I said, "Look," I said, "it's gone so well today." I said, "and seeing the horses here," I said, "I'm sure we'll get the Horse of the Year show next year." Good night.
Thinking of the next generation of players, you had a big part to play in Marcus's development, didn't you?
I used to do about January till March. I used to go to Peter White's indoor school, and it was an ice box, you know, freezing cold. And I used to get the lads from around that area, and Marcus would come, and I wish I had £1 for every ball I bowled at him. I probably would be sat on my island now. But yeah, a lot of things, you know, I bowled thousands of balls. It was such a talent at that age. And his dad was a good player, Martin. Rang me out in a second team match at Colville.
Did he?
But that's the sad thing for me a little bit with like that, is that I'd get all over the county, and we'd play all over the county, and we'd play at Keynsham, and Lynn Martin's, Marcus's mother would do the lunches and teas, you know, and we would play at Clevedon and Worcester, and it's lost that a little bit, I think, you know, that, you know, I always felt I could walk on any of the club grounds around the county, and somebody would know me. Not that I'd mean it that way, but they'd say, "Oh, what about so-and-so? He's a good player."
Yeah.
You know, and we had a lot of lads from that area, you know, like Colin, Julian Wyatt, you know, that's Peter Denning, shooting Mender. But, you know, everything's very central. I can understand the reasoning of it. It's all centralised now, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's lost a bit of its sweetness.
Just before you go, Peter, we're sat in the Marcus Trescothick stand, as it is.
Yeah.
You've got a few memories of what used to be here before now, haven't you?
What? You mean the rat poisoning?
I do indeed. You know what I mean.
We used to have a boiler out there where the umpire's room was as well, and you know, you could come in out of the rain and get wet. You know, we have buckets catching the drips. We had a gas fire, a big sort of bath, club bath, and you know, and there'd be holes in there. I said, "What's that down there?" "Oh, it's rat poisoning." And the lunches were another world, you know, and the pies had all done 3 race meetings before they got here, you know, and we put a cross on a cake once, and it come back in for about 2 weeks. It was one of them. One of the funniest things was we played Pakistan.
Yeah.
And Ethel and Bet used to do the lunches, and we playing there, and they put on a pork salad. It's true. It is absolutely true. And the manager said, "My players can't eat that." They said, "Can't they? Look, we got a lovely bit of ham." That's how it was. They wouldn't have a clue, you know. I mean, what the players have for meals now, what we had. Graham Atkinson broke a finger, got torn up. He went in, and there was a little bit of cheese, and he picked up a bit of cheese and a cracker, and the secretary, "I must remind you, Graham, we only cater for the 12 and the umpires and scorers." I mean, the sweaters, they'd hold it up to the light to make sure, you know, because, you know, and he'd probably have a couple of new balls pre-season, no more than that, you know. And we had to buy all our own kit, of course, you know. But the old pavilion, it had the boiler, and we used to say to the 12, "Run it early," and they'd have cold there.
Let theirs be cold.
And it used to leak, and I've heard them moan about their kit being wet. But we always used to have a look and see if anybody left anything.
Yeah.
I once had a Tony Lock sock.
Did you really? Tony Lock.
You know, I looked to see if any kit left. Well, you bought all your own, you see.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different world.
Was a different world.
I had more shirts when I coached than I did when I played. Yeah.
Talking about coaching, I mean, over the years, who would be some of the people that you've coached who've gone on and made a go of it?
Well, I mean, what as coaches?
Yeah, as coaching, yeah.
Well, I think Gareth Townsend did a great job up in with the young players up in Surrey. I see he's got a mention today when they were inquiring about the lad who's just been picked for the tour.
Yeah.
I was always sad that Julian didn't stay longer.
Yeah.
You know, he was good with the younger players, very good.
And Mark Davis?
Mark, good way with them, you know, good way with them. And as I say, I think Julian's still doing one-on-ones. So I haven't seen Mark for a long time.
He was doing what you were doing not long ago.
Yeah.
He's an interesting story, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, Mark, he obviously Kill. I played a bit for Kill with the Davises, Fred Dane. And he had a great year one year, and his mum made him run round the hills of Kill, and he was never been fitter. Because he played for England A. He went on a tour, Mark, and he he was due to get married. I said, well, you can always get married. And he went on the tour and got married afterwards, you know. But he could bowl. He just lost his way a bit later on. Yeah. But as I say, local lad, playing for Fred Davis down in Kill was, you know, it was all family really.
And what do you feel when you come back in here now?
Oh, I'm always made very welcome. You know, I don't come that often. I don't want to spoil it, and I can only tell my stories once a year.
Yeah.
And by next year they'll have forgotten. You see.
But I'm guessing this place must be something special to you, even though there's been so many changes.
Oh yeah, I mean, do you remember the old cottages?
Over the back.
Well, that's my little keeping up my extension, the bricks.
Really?
And Mark Davis and his dad built it.
Okay.
And he said, "We could do with some bricks looking a lot." I said, "Well, there's loads down the ground." And they were from the old cottages.
Yeah, I know where
and
they
we
were.
used to pay a peppercorn rent for a foot of ground there, all
Yeah.
along there.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's the stream, I think, runs through.
Stockwell Stream.
Yeah, yeah. And then we had the well, as I talked earlier, about where the Colin Atkinson put it. There's a
Yeah.
well there.
Yeah.
And that's where Dave Pipe used to pump the water. Well, in '76, this looked lovely and green all here. But I say, Pipey with the dogs, you know, another world.
You tell us about the dogs. Not many people would know about that.
No, well, when I came, Jeff Clayton used to love it because he used to keep greyhounds, Jeff. If you got in the back of his car and got out, you could bark with the front. Unbelievable. Yeah, Jeff used to love it. Tuesday and Fridays, move all the seats out and the
Yeah.
bookies would be there. But as I say, when I joined, it was 38,000 to run the club. They were very close to selling it to the council for
Were they?
100 grand, I think.
Right.
Yeah. It was desperate for there. But it was £7.50 a night Dave paid. Tuesdays and Fridays. You didn't want a field on the boundary, you know, he used to water it all. And he used to get somebody in to turf the bends in April.
Yeah.
And they ran the hare from on the top of the old indoor school. You know, and that's where the scorers were as well.
Yeah.
You know, and it tended to stop somewhere around Coal Orchard in case if the wrong one was winning, I think. Or they give them pork pies so they couldn't run too far. But they used to have the kennels in the car park there against the wall, and we'd have 2 or 3 grass nets where they didn't last long, but the grass nets also doubled as the parade ring. So you didn't lick your fingers very often when you were bowling.
When you played, it was only a 6 months contract, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So what did you do with yourself in the winter?
Oh, I had some wonderful jobs. I worked on national carriers. I did a fortnight at the Shore Grip Broom Clam Company for about 2 weeks. Then I went back on the railway, but 5:30 in the morning or midnight or 10 till 7. Well,
Yeah.
I used to hate the early mornings, and they said, "Well, would you like to do permanent 10 till 7?" I said, "Oh, lovely." But you'd have all the best sack trucks were taken by the early people.
Yeah, of course.
So I'd watch where they'd hide them. So when I'd come on at 10 o'clock, their trucks were missing when they started at 5:30. And they used to say, "That's my sack." I said, "British Rail." But I did a year or 2 with that, and then I got the full-time coaching, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I first came down in 1965, I used to get 12 monthly payments at £40 a month. Well, you were better off in the winter.
Because you had more money coming in.
Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you get bonus money in those days playing?
We used to get £7.50 for a win. Yeah.
And what about when you got to Lords, to the 67 final?
Oh, well, your contract said that you were playing any game the county deemed you to play in. And we had a bit of an argument, and I think Herbie Hoskins might have been chairman then. Anyway, they gave us £15 a man, taxable, but we made £20 each out of Fred. Fred did a brochure, wonderful really, and we got somebody selling them outside the ground on the morning.
Right.
And we all got 20 quid apiece.
That was pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course, Fred then went on to Derby and he started the PCA, didn't he?
He started it here.
Did he?
He wanted a fiver off us all.
Yeah.
Fred, you know, they got a lot to thank Fred for. You know, it was. I think he got talking with Jimmy Hill and all these football people about the professional footballers, and John Arlott got involved, I think, and people like that. And it's come a long way since. It's helped so many players. He had wonderful ideas, Fred. You know. He went up to Derby to play a bit there and do the marketing, which it was sort of early days, wasn't it, of that sort of thing. I think he did it for a year here. I remember putting a dance on. I think it was only Colleen, Liz, and Fred and me
who turned up.
but he was a larger than life guy, wonderful, you know.
There were a few wonderful characters in your day, though, weren't there?
Oh yeah. I can remember Bill Ali playing against my uncle and kept sweeping him. He used to hate that. My uncle said, "I hope all your chickens die," because Bill used to keep chickens.
Yeah.
And I remember Jim Park saying he used to sweep him. You know, you say, "Call yourself an England player," you know, and that was sort of. I played against him in the Birmingham League, and he used to give me some real stick. But he wrote a good article on leg spin bowling, which was on the MCC coaching book,
right,
which was presented to me in 1952. I captained a cricket and football at St Clement's. And there's an article of my uncle's in there, Jewel in the Sun it's called, on leg spin bowling.
Yeah.
And he went to Lord's, and R.W.V. Robbins, have you heard that name?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
He said, "Hello, Rowley." He said, "Who wrote that for you?" He said, "Who read it to you?" he got reprimanded at Lord's because he's playing in a gentleman's beef game, and he had a train to catch, Rowley. So he said to somebody, "I'm going to play like the Jazz Hats today." He got reported, and he got reprimanded by Lords. He fought the war on the top of Worcester Cathedral on Lookout.
Did he?
Yeah. The barracks there, Norton Barracks in Worcester, a lovely cricket pitch. And he's batting with an officer, and he said, "Come one." He said, "It's come one, Sir Jenkins." So he said, "Well, if I call two, do I salute?" But he was an amazing character, really. You know, he's about 20 odd years with the county. You know,
Well, you had 45 years here, Robbo.
43.
43.
1965 to 19. When did I retire?
2008.
2008. Yeah.
And it doesn't really seem that long ago, does it?
No. Well, I don't know where the last 15 are gone. Well, I do when I walk.
Yeah. And you're a pretty keen gardener, though, aren't you? You've got your allotment going still?
Yeah, that's it. Well, I found it quite an oasis in my coaching days, really.
Yeah.
Because all they talked about was black fly and club route.
Yeah, not club cricket.
and Ken and I used to have some lovely Saturday mornings. You know, sat in the old polytunnel or outside if it was nice, you know, and put the world to right, you know, and I used to get him wound up. We both, well, he was not out, and I got out in the 90s at Lord's.
Yeah.
And I used to say to somebody, "Just ask Ken if he got 100 at Lord's." And they'd ask him, "Oh, no." And I got 97. The game before the Gillette Cup final.
Yeah.
Court, always got caught behind. Court Murray bowled Price. And the ball they bowled, it had 101 written all over it, and I got the faintest edge on it. And Ron Hooker just said, well, how's that? And I walked off. And John Langridge said, I couldn't have given you out, he said. But Ken was on 96. Fred Titmus is bowling. And we were going to declare overnight, really, but we weren't going to bat on in the morning. And he's baiting Ken.
Yeah.
And he blocked it, 96 not out. And he's walking up the stairs at Lord's. Jim Sims, the old scorer, you'll regret that, lad. He said, not 100 at Lord's. So we used to wind each other up with that.
Yeah, I'm sure. What would you think if you were playing the game now?
Well, I'd get a heavy bat and practice whacking it, I mean, we were always playing for our livelihood, I think Ken got about 90 odd not outs. If A.A. Jones was in, I think you can hit this spell. You look for a red ink, you judged on your average, and we were always, once a long contract, you're on a 6-month contracts, living in a clubhouse. You could get the sack September and you move out, it was a different world, they owned you as well. They move. Not many players have 4 clubs, do they? They do. Some of them do now.
They didn't then.
No, I mean, I played a year with Tom Graveney in the second team at Worcester. He left Gloucester.
Yeah.
He couldn't just go and play count for Worcestershire. Roy Virgin, when he left here, had to do a couple of months at Northants. Before I came, Ken, Graham Atkinson and Ron Langford wanted another £25 a year. And they went to said, we want this money. Ken had done the double. Langy got 140 odd wickets. Graham Atkinson got 2,000 runs. Oh, no. And they started having a net in, I think Graham's wife Shirley wrote the letter to the secretary. Yeah. Anyway, they have a net just out in the January. And said, well, what's happening about the contracts then? What's happening about this Langy bit, the old lip? I said, well, I've signed. He said, I've got a wife and 3 kids. So he'd signed and Ken and Naki hadn't. Yeah. Then they had to go knock on the door and go and sign their contracts there. They never got it. Never got it.
No.
As I say, you couldn't just walk away.
It's interesting and how it's all swung the other way now.
Yeah.
Would you do it all again, Robbo?
Oh yeah, I mean, I always, good days and bad days. I think I had more enjoyable days than bad. I mean, as I say, the latter part of it, when health and safety and directing and match days and things like that, that was it really. I couldn't wait to get away then. Then I did the pitches out at Taunton Vale.
You did, yeah.
But no, I look back and I think remember Mark Lathwell, what a wonderful player he was, and really sad how Mark finished really. I remember Roy Marshall, when he was poor, he would always ring up to see if Somerset was batting to go and watch Mark. I can remember Neil Mallender getting called up for him. I was sat having breakfast with him at Leicester. Yeah. And we were there, and went over a call for Mr. Mallender, and it was Graham Gooch ringing him up that he called up for England.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah.
Great experience.
Oh, so wonderful. Lovely. I saw Neil, back along. Lovely. Yeah. So many different characters as well. It's.
Well, Robbo, I'd have to say you're one of those characters, and we're very, very grateful for you coming to share your experiences with us today.
Well, it's been enjoyable. Yeah.
Thank you, Robbo.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for your time.